You don't get more JDM than an NSX-R, yo, so what better way to pamper this one's new Formula Red panels than with some suitably JDM products from the land of the rising sun. One of only two in the country, this R variant of the famed NSX is owned by fellow detailer Mike of Minutia, and because he's continually tied up tending to other people's pride and joy, he was happy for me to give his a once over to hopefully breathe some life back into its high profile panels. I'd sourced some Japanese cleaning products to appropriately perform the task, and while circumstances weren't entirely on my side, the plan was just to work through them on camera as best I realistically could. Despite being a detailer-owned unicorn, the car certainly hadn't been coddled, so there was more than enough road and track contamination on its surfaces for me and the Soft99 gear to be getting on with. The first job was to treat the champ white wheels to a contactless pre-clean with a citrus degreaser before they could be tackled with the JDM brake dust remover. The zesty degreaser was liberally applied to all areas including the inner arches with a pump spray before being thoroughly rinsed off with a pressure washer. The dedicated foamy wheel cleaner was then sprayed all over the white forged wheels, starting with the inner barrels as they're generally the dirtiest parts, before being left to soak, but not for too long as the red centre cap logos are known for being susceptible to fading. The cleaner does come with a cylindrical sponge agitator thingy, but that wouldn't really have been any use on these particular wheels, so I went with a standard soft brush to work it in instead. It felt pretty tame if I'm honest, and struggled to shift what appeared to be ingrained dirt. However, that could have been some crude cosmetic touch-ups from the past, but regardless I still got the impression it's a product that would be more suited to regular maintenance cleaning of lightly soiled wheels more so than deeply ingrained or neglected ones. Soft99 doesn't make a dedicated snow foam, so I decided to just add a few inches of their creamy shampoo to my foam bottle to see how it'd fare instead. And while it certainly created some suds that lightly helped to soften and lift loose surface dirt, unsurprisingly it failed to produce anywhere near the thick, clingy foam a standalone product would, but still that's to be expected and certainly isn't a poor reflection of the product, it's just the stubborn way I chose to do things here. Once it had been given time to soak under the overcast sky, it was then thoroughly rinsed off from top to bottom to prepare the surface for a good contact wash. And while you've no doubt seen it all before, this is a special car I'd gone well out of my way to feature, so you can flipping well see it all again. My trusty worn black Meguiars buckets you all love so much were then treated to a healthy squirt of pH neutral JDM goodness before being filled and frothed appropriately in preparation for the best bit. With the temperature being low and me using filtered water courtesy of the car's generous owner, I could afford to take my time here and savour the process of washing over the NSX-R's various track-focused features, which is exactly what I did, although I couldn't quite decide which was my favourite, the carbon fibre wing at the back or the vented carbon fibre bonnet at the front. After being gently contact washed, it was time for one last thorough filtered rinse to rid the panels of both suds and stray dirt particles. A soft blue microfibre drying towel then helped provide some contrast against the new Formula Red paintwork, and while I could have technically just let the residual filtered water air dry, that would have taken a bit of time in these conditions. Plus, because the car was already moderately swirled, I wasn't too concerned about drawing a towel over its paintwork. Once the car had been towel dried from top to bottom, the wheels were blown off to remove any trapped water and simultaneously dry the sticky Yoko advans in preparation for dressing. Soft99's Tire Wax comes complete with its own applicator, but it looked a bit bulky for my liking, so I decided to go with a fresh, tough shine dressing sponge instead, as I think these are pretty much perfect. The black, solventy smelling product was first dabbed over the tyre wall before being worked into it with the sponge, which wasn't particularly easy, as being a wax, not a dressing, it's difficult to detect on the surface. Now, if shine is what you're after, then this product certainly isn't for you. However, if you just want to add some factory fresh protection to your tyre walls, then it might be worth giving a go. Just be aware that its dark shoe polish like formulation means that your applicator will quickly discolour and contaminate whatever it comes into contact with, including the wheels themselves, so perhaps not the best choice for white ones like these. With the cold starting to permeate, I then decided to get myself and the car indoors. Now, while the bright, heated and dust-free unit behind the camera would have been nice, there were already cars being worked on in there. Plus, I knew the LED lighting would have flickered something rotten on my 60 frames per second footage, so I opted to plonk it in a secondary storage unit, which was more dimly lit but would flicker far less and still provide a relatively controlled environment in which to apply a healthy layer of protection. Once in position then, it was time to put the Silicone off spray to the test to help prepare the Honda's panels for the subsequent coat of PTFE based sealant. It was simply sprayed directly onto each panel and then gently wiped over with a brand new general purpose towel to try and keep any marring of the notoriously soft Honda paintwork to a minimum. I'm not entirely sure if its aerosol formulation helped or hindered the wipe down process, but it was certainly unique and seemed to leave the paintwork clean and smear free. Panel prep complete, I grabbed the tin of Fusso Coat Light to lay down some slick JDM protection. Now, the wax does come with a sponge applicator of its own, but it was far too coarse for my liking, so opted to apply it with a much softer sponge finger mitt instead. As per my usual application technique, it was dabbed onto the panel to be protected before being gently worked over the surface back and forth until a nice uniform coverage was achieved. Once applied, it was left to sit for a few minutes before being buffed off with the heavier side of the Soft99 yellow microfibre to reveal a nice slick and, as far as I could tell here, streak-free finish. after the yellow towel had buffed over a few panels to prevent oversaturation of its fibres, I switched to some double density shag pile blue ones to safely eat up the rest of the residue. Not that there's anything wrong with the Soft99 towel, I quite liked it, but I only had the one, and you really should be reaching for fresh towels every couple of panels if possible. As soon as I felt everywhere had been given a good going over with the protectant, I put the Soft99 products to one side and began my final spritz and buff routine with a light detail spray to gently remove any marks I may have missed in the dingy light. And the great thing about this particular product is you don't need to double buff, as it leaves no residue of its own. It's literally just a stray smear remover. Final wipe down complete, I then unleashed my fancy tickle stick to lightly caress the NSX-R and eliminate any light dust particles that may have settled on the surface. And while this step is far from essential, who wouldn't want to tickle a red hot Japanese beauty like this behind closed doors? I then quickly captured a few shots while still under cover just to give an idea of what it had looked like under some form of artificial lighting, but thankfully the grey skies had held out long enough for me to pull it back out and catch some more natural, brighter outdoor aftershots. I would have loved to have really gone to town on a car of this calibre, but the conditions, time and camera constraints just didn't allow it, so a gentle wash and wax with some appropriate products had to do. Still, it's probably one of a very limited number of videos showing a rare NSX-R being given a clean, so hopefully it was still worth it. Aside from perhaps the wheel cleaner, the Soft99 product seemed more than capable and I think helped lend some JDM authenticity to the video, which may well have been lost if I'd have gone with my usual products. If you've used any of the stuff yourself before, then let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below, as well of course as what you think of the NSX-R. In my experience, you either just get it or don't understand the hype, but when you've come from the likes of CRXs and S2000s, this is pretty much the holy grail when it comes to Honda. But either way, cheers for tuning in all the same, and here's to the power of dreams.